Okay, so I get questions, and I'm sure you're here because you're confused on some stuff. So what I want to do is just go over some basics on what things mean in the system. So why are we doing what we're doing? So the first thing is this percent sign. This makes a comment, right? So I can put anything I want here. I can write myself instructions or something like that, right? So this is anything I want for myself or somebody else that's working with my code, okay? Really well documented code, has lots of comments and people appreciate it, and you know, it's a big thing in the coding world. Okay, so as we go in, I'm getting questions like, okay, I got a equals 5 and I put this semicolon. Why is there a semicolon? Why? Okay. Well, what happens if I don't do that? Okay. The first thing is, watch, when I'm going to put it away, it suppresses the output. So now when I hover over this, it's going to tell me that it wants me to do it because it's gonna suppress the output. Let's run our file without doing it, and what happens is I see the a equals 5 show up here when I run my file, right? I see the background stuff start showing up. Okay, so let's clear that out and let's put our semicolon back in there and let's run this thing, and what you see is nothing shows up over here. You'll notice I named my file junk. I always have a junk file. The junk file is where I do testing. I delete everything in there. I only copy stuff in there. I test with it. I break my code. I figure out how it works, and I put it back into my real one. Okay, so now if I display A, what's going to happen is I should get a 5 out here. I don't get A equals 5. I just get the 5, right? So I've displayed just the value of A, which was different than when we took away that semicolon and I got the whole A equals 5. This is the correct way to do a display because it shows you exactly what you wanted to see. Now, I don't put a semicolon here because it's weird, because I already wanted to display this out here into here, so I would keep that away. I think if I put it there, it still does it just fine, but it's weird to me. And you'll notice that it doesn't bark at me like it did on the other one, because that was an assignment, right? And this is a display, which is meant to come out to here. So that's why there's a semicolon. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. What is a matrix? A linear space and a vector, right? So what are these things? Okay, so a matrix is an n by m space that is similar to an Excel spreadsheet. In fact, that's all Excel is a big matrix, right? A linear space is a higher dimensional version of a matrix. We won't use them in our class. You'll notice as you start trying to cheat later on and get code from online, they use them. And I recommend against it until you're comfortable with it. Imagine like a matrix, but the Rubik's Cube form, right? So like, you know, 3-dimension, 4-dimension, 5-dimension, they get a little bit weird. It's fine if you've taken like higher dimensional topology or something, but probably not for what we need. What is a vector? These are going to be, a vector is a 1 by n, or should we use n or m? I'll just do n again. N by 1 space, right? So either a column or row. And this will probably be what you prefer to work in. That's a lot what we'll do, and then we'll stack our vectors together into a matrix, okay? So for example, like x equals 1 by 2 by up to 23, right? And then I want to display x. What am I going to see? Okay. Well, don't do that. what I see is that I get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, right? And it starts at 1, it jumps by 2, and it ends at 23, right? And that's what we see here, okay? And it's a row. So if I put an apostrophe here, I can transpose the vector into a column, right? Which might be easier for me to read, okay? And you can change the height in MATLAB of each readout area. And eventually we can output this to an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so cool. So what happens if I don't put a number there? Well, then I'm going to get 1, 2, 3. It just assumes that the middle number is a 1. Okay. What if I do something really specific? Sure. And it'll sit here and do this, right? And it's happy to do this. I mean, you know, doesn't take it that long. Okay. Let's do something else. Now, let's say y equals x. Okay, watch. X squared. Now, something's wrong with this. Remember, this is a vector. So, it's originally a row, right? So it's one row and a whole bunch of columns, right? And so 1 by n, if you multiply it by a 1 by n, the n and the 1 don't match correctly. And what's going to happen is that it's error using this. It doesn't multiply correctly. And that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted to do like 1 squared and 2 squared and 3 squared, right? So, and let's not go up to 23 anymore. Let's go up to like 5. And there you go. Now I did it. 5 squared would be 25. So I did it element by element with this little here dot. Okay. Cool. So here's what we're now going to do. We're going to plot x against y in a, let's go the green line here. UHCL Hawks. Okay, so I got a green line. Oh, that's pretty light. Here, let's go blue. Okay, so if I go from -5 to 5, we've now made how your calculator works, right? All it does is it has a predefined resolution. In fact, if you go into your window settings on the TI calculator, you'll find those resolution settings. That's exactly this. And then in the y equals, you type in a function and it plots each of those points, right? You know, that's how all this works. Okay, so that was several of the questions that I got. There was a question about flow and order. So I define the x values here, right? You'll often use time instead, okay? Here, I define y as a function of the x values that is known, right? That is known above. That is above. Here, let's say is above. Okay, so I take these x values and I plug them in, and that gives me a y value. Okay, so then here I can plot it. I can, and what if I don't know how to plot? I've been sitting here for like all day. I couldn't figure this damn thing out. Well, here, help plot. Right? What does it tell me? It has a bunch. And it gives me a bunch of stuff. I'm going to plot with lines and diamonds. No way. Does this work? Oh, I need to make it less spaced. Yeah. Ridiculous. You can go down here and you can go look at what are your spec options, right? And you see how I just did help, and then you can be like, oh well, how did they do this, right? And look at all these different things they did and their options. So you could do the X and the Y and the right. This is a good function here. I like their here. Wait. You know what? Let's just take the whole thing. If you're gonna steal. Okay, let's go try this. Wait, I don't want to delete this, so here you go. I think I can just highlight them, right click, and hit comment. And now that's just part of the comments. Now it won't run with my code. Now I can redefine all this. Here, I want to move back. It drives me nuts. It doesn't matter to MATLAB, I don't think, but it matters to me. Sick. So they have dashed lines that are red with squares, and they put the line width, they put the marker edge color to black, they put the marker face color to green, that put them the green stuff, and they selected the marker size to be 10 so that they can put the size of it. So if we change this 10 to like 20, those things will get bigger. Okay. And so now all of a sudden I can go make my own plot. You see how I did this? So we use the references that are there, and we learn as we go. You'll see that they define what X is. The computer does know pi. You define what X is. Then you can use X in terms of these. Now be careful. These are radians. Remember, this is radian. These are always radians, so be careful in your degrees. And then you can plot X and Y. And if we didn't want all this stuff, we could just do this part like I'm doing here, and it'll make it. And then you can put like X labels, Y labels, legends, all these things, titles, right? And you can make very, very high quality graphs, which you may need as we get further into the course and start getting stuff evaluated like that. Okay? I think that was a lot of the kind of basic questions. I hope I've been helpful. If you have more video suggestions, please send them, and I'm happy to help. Thanks.